Welcome back. This is chapter 4, The Enemy, written by Pearl S. Buck. And today I'm going to explain page number 32nd to you. So here we go. While she was thinking these thoughts, though not really liking the man better now that he was no longer a child, she kept on washing him until his upper body was quite clean. After untying the knots of the rag, Hannah started to give him a wash, started to wipe the upper part of his body clean. So while she was doing this, she looked at the skin color, that is the complexion of this man, and had appreciation for it. But as a child, she assumed that as a child he had been very fair. So while wiping, she had this thought in her mind, but she dare not turn him over, that is, turn him to the back. Where was Sadao? She started to look for Sadao, and her anger was now ebbing, was now receding, was now coming down. So she started to become a little uneasy about her immediate surrounding. So she asked this question, and then she rose up and wiping her hands on the wrong towel. Out of tension, say, she wiped her hand on the wrong towel. Then, lest the man be chilled, she put the quilt over him, and fearing that if he lay the same way, then he would catch cold. So, fearing that, she put the quilt over him. Sadao, she called softly. So having put the cover, having put the quilt over him, Sadao, she called softly. So having put the quilt over him, she was now looking for Sadao. And so she called out to him softly. He had been about to come in when she called, and it was the time when he was about to reach there. He had come near on the partition near the door. His hand had been on the door, and now he opened it. So the moment she gave him a call, he had been near the door, his hand was there on the door, and now he opened it. She saw that he had brought his surgeon's emergency bag and that he wore his surgeon's coat. Now, as the door was slit, she noticed some changes in him. He had put on the surgeon's coat, and there was a surgeon's emergency bag in his hand now. "You have decided to operate," she cried, she shouted. "So you have finally decided to operate him?" "Yes," he said shortly. Now he answered briefly, only uttered yes. He turned his back to her and unfolded a sterilized towel upon the floor of the Tokonoma alcove and put his instruments out upon it. So now, entering the room and reaching near the man, he turned his back towards his wife, and then unfolding a sterilized towel, he had sterilized towel in his hand, and he unfolded it now, spread it on the put it on the floor, that is on the Tokonoma alcove floor, that is, you can say, on the carpet, and then spread all his instrument out upon this towel. "Fetch towels," he said. Now he asked for towels, more towels. She went obediently, but how anxious now, to the linen shelves and took out the towels. Now she followed him very sincerely. That is, she was very sincere to all his commands and went straight to the linen shelves to take some towels from there. But she was quite anxious, she was quite worried now. There ought also to be old pieces of matting so that the blood would not ruin the fine floor covering. Now she thought that there would also be required some mattings, some mats would also be required, short mats would also be required, otherwise that would damage the fine carpet there. She went out to the back veranda where the gardener kept strips of matting with which to protect delicate shrubs on cold nights, and took an armful of them. So from there, thinking in that way, she went to back veranda, that is back side of the veranda, and from there she brought in a handful of mats which were spread on the shrubs, delicate shrubs, to protect them from cold on cold nights. But when she went back into the room, she saw this was useless, and when she reached the room, she found that it was all useless because the blood had already soaked through the packing in the man's wound and had ruined the mat under him. She found it useless because the blood had already dripped from his wound and had damaged the carpet. "Oh, the mat!" she cried. She shouted, she exclaimed, and said that, well, the mat is gone. "Yes, it's ruined," Sadao replied, and Sadao replied very plainly, "Yes, that's gone," as though he did not care, and his expression was such that suggested that he did not care, he didn't bother about the carpet a little, that is, he cared the damage of the carpet the least. "Help me turn him," he commanded her. He now asked her to render him help to turn him to his back. She obeyed him without a word, and he began to wash the man's back carefully. She obeyed him very sincerely, and then as he was turned to his back, he started to wash the man's back carefully. Yumi would not wash him, she said. So here she informed that Yumi refused to wash him. "Did you wash him then?" Sadao asked, not stopping for a moment his swift, concise movements. So while he was still washing his back with short, concise movement and doing it very swiftly, he asked whether she did all the washing herself. "Yes," she said, and she replied yes. He did not seem to hear, but she was used to his absorption when he was at work. Okay, now as she replied, he seemed not to hear her. He was so much absorbed, he was so much busy with his work that he seemed not to hear her words, he seemed not to follow her words. And she was quite used to such kind of things, because whenever he was busy with work, he would not follow others' words. So this is all for now. Thank you.